Hello, Ria,
Hi.
my sister from another mister.
Yeah. Long
So I,
lost sisters, maybe.
yeah, long lost sisters, most definitely. Oh my God, I can't even begin to tell all the people who are listening today how connected I am with this woman here. Because my entire journey from synchronicities um, to the spiritual path that I'm on actually began with her. Before meeting her, I had no clue what synchronicities really meant. 11 elevens, 2 2 2s, and everybody who knows me, I'm totally into repeated numbers. So it's all because of this crazy woman
Yeah, but
who got
I
me into it but got out of it.
yeah, I had no clue what I was talking about when I started talking to you. And now you teach me things about what it actually means. So it's
Yeah, it's kind of
a
interesting.
different
It's like,
experience.
yeah, yeah,
Now
I
you
get
teach me
that.
things.
Okay, okay. That's making me awkward. Uh, but yeah, so just to tell everybody, today's conversation is centered around the subject living abroad because I think that's one thing that Ria and I both have in common. We both have lived abroad, and funny enough, we even met abroad in a weird
Yeah.
way. Um,
Who would have thought?
just who would have thought, really? So, very, very serendipitous, I must say, how it all aligned for both of us. It's going to be centered around living abroad and how it impacts our well being. And I think it's just, I was living in Canada and Ria was living in
France.
yeah. So Ria was living in France and I was living in Canada, and both of us are from food industry. And then we decided to do further studies abroad. And Ria,
Yeah.
my question to you, first question to you, and maybe you can apply this question back to me as well. Why did you plan to go study abroad? Like, what was your objective around it?
Uh, why? I think it was just that I was in that phase in life where I'd explored life here, done things, learned things here, and I wanted to try something different, see what life is like outside of India. Growing up, I think I always spent time only in one city. And after that, once I moved a little away for my bachelor's, then I was very mesmerized by what I experienced. And so I wanted to see what's outside of India as well. And yeah, I was just excited for a new start, new phase. I was used to moving around before that. When we were at Taj, we moved around so much. So I think I was, craving something like that again, which is why I thought, yeah, let's do something different. And plus, I mean, professionally, it's a whole different story. It's not an easy journey in the hospitality industry, which is why I was like, I've got to find another way to stay related to food and uh, not live the same journey, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of
What about
relate
you?
to some bits of it. Yeah, I kind of relate to some bits of it. I think for me it was
Yeah.
uh, not about living another life of being mesmerized, but it was just wanting to learn furthermore. And another aspect of it was that you know how in Taj you were always like you heard of JRD Tata's story, how he used to travel a lot and how from his travel experiences
Yeah.
is the source through which he sort of like set up the hotel in the first place. So I think that was like an inspiration for me to move out. Um,
Yeah.
as well as I think I was really tired of being just a manager because as Ria and I both were working as management trainees. And for me, I was like, you know what, I want to be a chef and I should be really, really good with my skill set. So to like in 30 seconds, I can like whip off a perfectly finished iced cake. But that kind of skill set, I felt like I was lacking because the more that I sort of like went into the position of like a manager, I realized that I still don't have that much practice onto my skill set so that I can look like, oh my God, she can do that. So I was like, you know what? I want to start from scratch again. Like, I want to go abroad and I want to pick up like a course, like a postgraduate course. And I want to just from the very beginning start being like an associate or a commie, and work like that. That's why I moved abroad. Like, I don't think there was any other reason on my mind at that point of time as to why I would want to move abroad. What that brings to my mind is that, so once you did move abroad, how did what you had planned, like, or thought of, like, initially, like, for you, mesmerizing, moving out, change, how did that sort of like add up?
So it was nothing like I expected, and also everything that I expected. I don't think I was very prepared for what I was going to experience, though. I think when it happened, also, it wasn't something that I knew would happen in a particular time, and it wasn't. I don't think I was as well organized back then. So I went to a country where I didn't speak their language, which was completely, yeah, it was. But luckily for me, the course was in English, so I could keep up with that. Um, I would say that in terms of what the life was there, it was beautiful. All the things that you see about the country, it was all of that. Like every footpath was serene. Crossing the roads was interesting because people would stop for you. And it took me a while to even adjust to the idea that, when I wait on one side of the road, there'll be cars that will stop for me so that I can cross the road. So it was those small adjustments, which were fairly positive, but it also came with the side of now realizing that now I can't really call anyone and ask them to help me out if I'm stuck with something, or call my parents and tell them that, can you send me something? I need this urgently, or, that sort of dependence I couldn't have anymore. So it was that realization of I'm going to be by myself and there's no one here to help me. There's no one I know and no one knows me. So that was definitely the other side, the other picture that people don't usually tell you. Yeah. So it was, I would say
Wow.
it's a must-have experience though, for everyone to grow as a person. Or, I mean, you don't necessarily have to go abroad to experience it, but to have a place where you don't have anyone around that you know is definitely something to experience.
Yeah, I totally completely agree on that. I think that take and that perspective is like so like relatable, and I completely agree, like, because I think that was my learning as well. I feel personally that when it comes to me living abroad, what my expectations were, I think I was totally completely blown away, and I was like, I'm never moving out of here. Because to be honest, I think it's the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I honestly and genuinely really like, see, you and I both have traveled a lot because of Taj. We moved like 5 cities, 6 cities. You and I both, we were living outside of our hometowns when we moved into college. You were at Manipal, I
Yeah.
was at Bangalore. So I don't think living independently was a thing, which is something that was new to us. I think living independently was the easiest part of it. I think very manageable, very doable. Um, I think it's the part of me that was a bit like कि लाइफस्टाइल तो बहुत ही क्रेजी है यहाँ पे. तो जो आप वो मूवीज में देखते हो ना, स्विट्जरलैंड के खेत सरसों के, और वो नेचर और वो पहाड़ और वो साफ सफाई, क्लेanलीनेस, oh my god, that was really really nice. Better
Yeah.
quality of air to breathe, cleaner roads, great laws in place, Um, I wouldn't even talk about like architecture. I just would say that for me, the most mesmerizing part about Toronto and Canada was nature. There was so much more of nature there, highlighted. And I think I'm a totally nature wala person. So for me, so it's like कि भाई पार्क दिख गया मुझे बस, और मैं तो रोज वहीं पड़ी रहती थी. मतलब Canada can be a little depressing when it's winters, but still I would go to the park because even the snow would be so nice, or even the winters
Yeah.
would be so nice outdoors. It was very spacious. You could breathe better. Um, and yeah,
And
I think yeah, that was it for me.
yeah, and I think apart from like how beautiful the place can be, it's also about how different the society is, structured. It gives you a new perspective. It's like, uh, what's that movie with Jim Carrey where he's in this
Mask.
simulation? No, he's in this simulation where he thinks that that's his real life, but it's actually a reality TV show. I can't remember.
God Almighty.
No, 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 no.
No,
So
I know what which movie you're talking about. I just can't think of the name.
yeah, so it basically that like all your life you've grown up in one simulation and then you move to another simulation altogether where the rules of the society are different. The norms are different. The way people look at something very basic could be very different. Like I was just talking about crossing a road, but uh, understanding people's roles in life in as a family member also changes. So I was living with a French family, and I like to see how my landlady was, such a progressive lady, which over there was every other woman you'd meet. But to me, I was just like, she is a progressive woman. But in France, she would probably be like every other woman of the population. Yeah. So that was something. And something as simple as sitting down for dinner with all her family and everyone who's living in the house. But making sure that by the end of it, she'd sometimes say, like, girls, please sit down, don't get up, let the boys do the dishes today. Something as simple as that is just like taking you out of one world and putting you in a new one where you realize that even this is possible. It is a world where things like this even exist. So yeah, it's not like you can't experience that in India, but I'm just saying that the Indian society is designed very differently from, the world in different countries. Yeah.
I was literally like, landlady, say what? Like what? Like that's so cool, right? That's really so cool because you would never hear probably an Indian family's landlady say that. वो तो बोलेगी कि अरे तुम्हारे कपड़े नीचे गिर गए हैं बेटा, कपड़े ऊपर लेके जाओ. Literally, that's something that you would hear from an Indian landlady.
Yeah.
Although I'm just saying very like stereotypically, but I'm sure it's different for different people.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, yeah, I mean, dude, like, even when I look at the people that I met in Canada, I think the one thing that I loved about Canada, I'm going to say it out loud, that I loved wearing whatever I wanted to wear. I think, I would have worn the max amount of crop tops, the max amount of things that would show my skin off over there. And proudly, and no matter what size I was, dude, because nobody gives a shit. Nobody honestly gives a shit. And I think that kind of thing sort of like gives you so much freedom and so much self-confidence that you're like, I mean, you mind your own business and I mind my own business until we sort of like, get into each other's business by probably talking to each other or getting to know each other. And I think even then, it's very, very different. Like, even then, once you get to know somebody, it's not like I'm going to be like that nosy little person who's going to like sneak up on you and around like all the time and gonna ask you like way too many questions. And going to keep up with you like every day. I think even that, I think in Indian culture is, I mean, it has its good sides and bad sides because connection building is very, very warm in India. But I think abroad, it's people know how to give each other space. And I think,
Yeah.
as I was saying, air, you breathe better. Like, because you get to know yourself so much more. And I think that's where I would want to plug in the question of, you know, was it like an isolating experience for you as well because of that? Or was it like similar for you, what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yes, because I mean that is I would say the dark side to experiencing life out there. It's that I don't think I've ever felt that lonely in my life ever. And and I have lived by myself for I don't know how many years now because I moved out of my house when I was 16, 17 or 18, I don't remember. So Uh, yeah, like I think it's not that you don't meet people. You do meet people. While I was studying, I had a lot of classmates, but there are so many differences between your culture, the way you talk, what you think is okay, or that sense of relatability is what gets people closer, right? And there are so many differences between the people you meet that it's really hard to overcome that and then have some sort of friendship. And that's not to say that I don't have friends there, but it takes I guess I'm that kind of person, maybe. It takes a certain degree of closeness for you to open up about your deepest feelings and emotions while you're going through a journey that's already quite individualistic and alone or lonely, maybe. So yeah, that I would say is the dark side. I don't remember what your question was because I've just gone on and on.
Yeah, that's okay. That happens. I think that's how you just like sort of flow with it. So, no, my question was exactly very, very close to what you said, that was it like an isolating experience?
Yeah.
Like, which is the other side of it also. Because I think once I came back here is when I realized how isolating like my inner self, inner being felt, because I think from a very get-go, like I've been like a really warm person. Like I love talking to people. I love being around people. I'm a people's person. Um, and even though in the midst of it, I started questioning it. So why am I a people's person? Like, am I really people's person, or is it like a people pleasing thing? But I think no. Like, I was honestly, genuinely, when I reflected on how my childhood was, I realized that no, I've always been that person. Like, I've always, from a very young age, at 6 years old, 4 years old, I would like go to my neighbor's house and like I would talk to the aunties and I would eat the food that they make and I would like learn from them. They would compliment me on the outfit that I would wear that day. And I would just become like their baby. Like I was the baby of the neighborhood, sort of a thing. So I think that was just me. And I think, but when I went abroad, for me, I think I kind of missed that. Like I think because for the first 25 years of your life, 24 years of your life, you actually more than that, you were living that way. That was your culture. And I think sort of did miss my culture, the warmth of my culture, the Indian culture. I think no matter how imperfect it is, like it just feels yours. Like there's some sense of belongingness to being here, and that's just a part of my roots. Although the indigenous culture in Canada, the tribal culture in Canada, I learned a lot from it, like slow cooking, conscious cooking, respecting nature, loving nature, connecting with animals. The animals there are they are not afraid of anybody. Like literally, the squirrel would be standing this close to you. In India, it would come like even like 1 feet close to
Yeah.
you. And they are huge there, okay? So it's also tiny. They're this big squirrels. You'll think that it's a raccoon. So I think that was also very, very interesting for me. That
Yeah.
how, nonetheless, their culture enhanced my perspective on my culture and reminded me that, if I want to make like a new culture of my own, I can take that and add it to it. And maybe that is the culture that I'll offer to my children.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you just said about I mean, it's not like they don't involve people or they're not welcoming enough, but I think something as simple as, say you're having a dinner and you're invited. They would and you want to take 2 or 3 more friends of yours to the dinner, you would first have to inform them and check with them, is it okay if I get 2 friends of mine? I mean, that is polite anyway. But the fact is that they might even turn around and say, I'm sorry, I don't have place for 2 more people. You can probably get 1 friend along. And that is something that you would never hear in India. Never at any point would someone say that no, you're not allowed to come or you can't get someone with you. Even for that matter, when it comes to weddings, it's they have limited and numbered seatings, and beyond that, you can't just walk into a wedding. Like we have so many jokes about people walking into weddings, eating food and leaving without
Yeah.
knowing who the
Yeah.
bride and groom are. But that could never happen there.
No.
And I guess
Can
there
you
are pros
imagine?
and cons to it. But yeah, that is something so specific, but it does show you the difference in cultures. I think that is
Yeah.
also something to, yeah, to
Yeah.
experience. It teaches you boundaries in some ways, which is not a bad thing, of course.
Not
But
at all. I think Indians
yeah,
are missing boundaries. I think that's why most of the Indian adults of today's age, I think especially women, not taught the importance of having individualistic boundaries in relationships. I think through all my client sessions, that's something that I have picked up on, is that women lack boundaries. And they, or even if they have, they lose their sense of boundaries because of the attachments that they have in life. And I think it's a thing. I think a certain set population of India is like that, especially women. It's a possibility. I haven't done my research on it. Hi, Mew Mew. That's Mew Mew, just cat. I think you can take a picture of Mew Mew and I'm going to make a sticker out of it and put it next to your photo in the creators.
yeah, he'll
Yeah.
be more than happy
Yeah, but he's been very quiet, I must say.
because he's just eaten, so he's not getting tabulous.
I haven't done my research on it, and I don't know if it's a thing or not. But this is just my experience as a professional that I've seen it all over, all across, and I think it's because of our what do you call, like, what we have learned from our elderly, in a way, like the way that I've seen my mom, and I've seen my mom's mom, and I've seen moms of my friends and their moms also. Grandparents also I've met for some of my parents. But I think it's the same old story that's going on when it comes to lack of boundaries, or the way that the woman serves the men of the family, or the children of the family, or the grandparents of the family. It's a certain set way that she's been sort of like raised by saying that, अरे बेटा शादी हो जाएगी, खाना कब बनाना सीखोगी, खाना बनाना नहीं सीखोगी तो शादी कौन करेगा, like the basic stereotypical things like that. I think, and I still think that it still exists. Maybe not in the culture, like urban culture, but otherwise still it's everywhere still.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't say that it's disappeared at all. It's very much out there. And now I think we're starting to notice it because we've been enabled to understand what that is and what the difference is. I think that's what moving abroad does. It makes you unlearn things from your previous simulation and learn new ways. That's just, yeah, simulation, something I've just come up with, but it works perfectly to explain this. But yeah, it helps you unlearn things a lot. I discovered uh, new ways of look or like a new outlook to life altogether because before that I didn't really knew that that was a possibility and that could exist. So yeah, so something as simple as our gender roles and how that can be completely neutralized because it's not to say that something like that does not exist even in France or whichever country. It does exist, but it's not as prevalent as it is in India. Yeah. And
Yeah.
no matter how modern any family is, my family or families that I know of, there is some sort of that still exists. Like even in a modern relationship, like my own maybe, uh, that still existed, but it wasn't something that I noticed because I was never aware of it before. And moving helped me see it differently. It gives you a better chance to see a different perspective.
Yeah.
That yeah.
Yeah, I think your perspective is so open. Like the way that you explained that thing, there was so much more expansion and openness in it, what with what you said. I mean, in terms of being considerate to the conditioning and being considerate to anything and everything that sort of like revolves around it in terms of the evolution with which we are all sort of like the pace at which we're all sort of like growing and changing our mindsets and shifting it and maybe changing the sort of stereotypes around it, notions around it. So yeah, it sort of makes sense. What I do want to ask you is another thing that how do you think like the isolation bit sort of like impacted you mentally and emotionally? I think that's the main crux of this conversation any which ways, and we have
Yeah,
just
we derailed completely.
no, it's not derailing. It's just slipping from the real vulnerable thing that we want to probably
I
talk
think
about.
that comes very naturally to me to escape escape whatever you're feeling. I think most people do that. And I think that loneliness came out because I tried to escape it for so long, and it came out only when I got the chance while I was there. Uh, I think it was all those emotions that were pent up and they never found an outlet. And it took me to be alone with only myself to realize that now I can't run away from my thoughts. I have to acknowledge them. And it started with just a feeling, of I don't know, and having anxiety about waking up every morning and not knowing what to do. And just it was a feeling, and I couldn't explain what it was. I hadn't experienced something like that before, and it felt so. I couldn't talk to a lot of people because I didn't think anyone would understand it. At least my immediate family wouldn't really get it. Because there were other things going on in my life that could account for that feeling. Okay, like I was in a place where I needed, or I was just stuck after I'd finished my course, and I was looking for some sort of internship or work, and there were a lot of barriers to getting to that. So, yeah, like that feeling could easily be accounted that way. Like it could have been because I'm waiting for something to happen, to look for an internship, to find a place where I can speak without struggling. All of that would perfectly make sense and explain the way I was feeling. But I knew it was beyond that. It was not only like finding an opportunity did not end that feeling, is what I mean to say. That it didn't disappear the moment I found an internship. It didn't fix the problem. So the problem was not that I wasn't finding something, it was that I had feelings that I had to face. Because of being by myself, I had the opportunity to face it. But and also it was the first time I ever had the thought or had the will to take therapy, because I couldn't see any other solution to the way I felt. And I had friends to talk to, but it's it's different because although people give you your space, which is what we were talking about, my landlady would never interfere with why are you coming back so late, what are you doing out so late, or who is that friend who dropped you. They don't care about those things. But that's exactly, I mean, I don't want my landlord to come and ask me what I'm doing, where I'm going, and all of that. But it's also the exact same thing that distances you from the people around you. That space is great, but it's also what makes you feel lonely. So I could go like an entire day without talking to a person who knew me outside of work. So that kind of silence is what's scary. It's something that I didn't experience before, because no matter where I lived, I had friends whom I would meet outside of work every day. Or because I didn't have a life, I was meeting them at work. So that didn't happen there for sure, which was slowly starting to creep in. And that's how I realized that, is this I mean, I'm an introvert, so I love spending time by myself. But that's when I started questioning myself about, do I really enjoy being by myself, or am I starting to feel something that I never thought I would? That sort of loneliness started to creep in. And I was just watching something today where he spoke about how loneliness can exist while you're alone and can also exist while you're with everyone else, which is what it is. Like, I could end up spending or having dinner with people who live in the house, but it would still feel lonely at the end of it all, because I didn't really have anyone to talk to. Or even if I had people to talk to back home, their existence in person, a person whom you can just open up to and just share your day, or just say that, this is how my day was. How was your day? That is what was missing. And all my friends that I met through college or through my studies had moved to different places around the world for their own thing. So there was no chance of, reconnecting with those people. At the most, I could pick up the phone and talk to them on call. But to have them physically there, to just have someone to hug, like, I realize I hate any form of physical touch. All of that is not my thing, but I missed hugging people. And after I came back from France, I just love hugs, Yeah, exactly. Like, when I met you there, I was so happy. That was like my first hug in I don't know how long. Right? And I think we discussed it also. It felt so good to have someone to hug. So yeah, it's a different kind of experience to be lonely in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm gonna cry, bro. So gonna cry. Glad I'm carrying tissues. Yeah.
Me too.
It was like a joke that I actually picked tissues because Ria said that I'm really nervous for today's conversation. And at the same time, she said that I'm having a cold, so I'm going to have tissues. I was like, don't worry, I'm going to bring tissues too. Even though I don't have cold, but it will just be to make some fun of you.
Yeah.
um,
But
so yeah,
how I mean, that sort of feeling is so, even before we could talk about it, we knew how much it affects how you feel and how your emotions are around a topic. So even before my first therapy session, I did the same thing that you just did. I kept a box of tissues next to me because I knew what was coming. Those feelings, those emotions are there. And to let it all out was, yeah, I just spent the most of my first session crying. Yeah.
I'm so happy. You know why? Because so happy to hear that I'm not feeling lonely in this moment. Because I see that you went through a similar experience. And I think even listening to your side of the coin gives me a lot of comfort. Uh, like, yeah, it just makes me comfortable in the sense that कि हाँ मतलब मैं अकेली नहीं थी जो देश के उस कोने में रो रही थी and I had I think so just to tell everybody again that my entire mental health struggle and the reason why I'm doing all of that I'm doing today got triggered when I went to Canada. And it is, and everybody asks me, why did you get depressed? What was the reason behind it? What is the root cause? To be honest, till date, my entire life is the root cause that I lived so far. I think so many incidents happen, and then all the incidents that happen, you don't live and experience them fully. And what makes you live and experience them fully is the emotion, because you feel that feeling that you get when you experience something, and when you don't fully experience it, you don't understand yourself fully because they are a part of you. And then when you don't do that, similar things keep happening in your life, because emotions are like a feedback to your own sense of self and your mind that, hey, hello, you are this rainbow being here. And if you don't experience your all colors, then you won't realize how complete you are. And for me, for the most of my life, I did not feel my emotions, even though I used to cry a lot. But that crying never used to come from a space of, oh, I'm feeling what I'm actually feeling in this moment. Even my crying was masked. My crying was a cry that I would I would cry to get attention. It's almost like a child would cry to get mother's attention to feed them the meal. It was just a needy cry. It was not feeling what you're feeling cry, in the sense that I'm feeling abandoned, or I'm feeling rejected, or I'm feeling that this breakup has like broken my heart to shattered, and it shattered it to pieces. I wouldn't feel all of that, but instead I would cry, so that hoping that when I cry and they see me cry, they're gonna come back to me. Do you get it? Like, that was my reality for the longest time. And yeah, and I think Canada, the isolation is what triggered it. And as you said, silence can be dreadful. And you have to walk through that dread to reach to the space where silence becomes peaceful. Because it's almost like in that silence you experience. So there's this song. Oh, I never said it in words. There was love in this silence. So it's like in that silence you will experience true love, like true emotions, true colors. Because silence is so, like, sometimes I feel like it's so misunderstood. People dread it, but it's actually the biggest hug that you can give to yourself is that silence. Because in that, there's no sound but your own inner voice.
Yeah, and I think that is something I feel like you will stop dreading silence when you acknowledge everything that you've not acknowledged so far. And what you said about, crying is an outlet, but it does not mean that you understood why you're feeling that way. unless you understand and acknowledge that I felt this way because of this, that feeling will still remain because you've not understood why you felt the way you felt. And so I feel like that anxiety also that I was feeling was all the things that I did not resolve for myself. Those showed up. It's like this. Okay, so imagine you're asleep, okay, and you have a nightmare. Okay, and you wake up in the morning with the fear of that nightmare, but you don't remember that nightmare. And that's how I look at anxiety, that
Wow.
you have lived through a nightmare and you've forgotten it, or you have, tried to seclude it completely because it brings out so much pain and so much emotion that now only the emotion stays and you keep wondering, why do you feel that way? But the answer is in just all those things that you choose not to look at, which is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I think how I can sort of like zoom into this feeling, because how I found out that I'm struggling with my mental health when I was in Canada was because of a panic attack, was because of anxiety. Because I was at work and suddenly I started getting like a anxiety attack. And started panicking. I went to the washroom. I called my then boyfriend and was like, what the hell? This is alien. This is so alien. Never happened to me before. Never experienced it. Don't know why it happened. Nothing. Because in that moment, to be honest, there was, I think there was barely anything that would have triggered me. You get it? Like,
Yeah.
and that anxiety wasn't a triggered anxiety. It just was. It just was. It was almost like, what the fuck am I doing here? 5 o'clock in the morning and frying bombolinis. Like, am I in Italy or I'm in Canada? Like, what is happening? It was literally like that. And I felt so displaced, I guess. That's what I
Yeah.
felt. Because when I was working there in that place, I was on an automatic mode. Every Saturday, 5 o'clock in the morning, it was first change your clothes, turn the fryer on, turn the oven on, then fry the bombolinis, then fill the bombolinis, then place all of those things that were already made in the fridge into the crate. So everything was like in a systematic order. It was like an assembly line production that used to happen in that kitchen. I don't know what happened to me that day, but I was just in automatic mode. And as you said, simulation. I felt like that was simulation, like crazy simulation that I would go through every Saturday and Sunday within another simulation that I was in living abroad. Like, oh my God, so trippy now that I say it. But, and as you told me much later, I think when we started talking like about all of these things, like 2 years later, after I was back in India, and I think it was last year when I was struggling with anxiety all over again, is when you told me that mostly anxiety would tell you, like, where you are not being truthful to yourself. Like, it's telling you that there's some part of you that is not being honest with your own, or you're not aligned with your truth. That's what you told me. And every time then when I would even like shake my legs, I would ask me, what in this moment is me not being in alignment with my truth? Can I look into it? Can I see it for what it is? And maybe if I do, then my legs would stop shaking. And most like, I honestly, it helps me till date. And in Canada, it was just like a spiral from there. From there, it was just so first of all, another thing that I would really appreciate about, I think, the culture there was that they did not look at mental health as a bad thing. They very much acknowledge that yes, this happens, and especially because the sun is so less in Canada that it's even more there, that people
Yeah.
would get stressed because of vitamin D deficiency or whatever. So
Yeah, seasonal depression is what they call it, but
yeah.
yeah.
So for them, they had a whole structure around it. Get the blood test first, check your vitamins and everything first. Then after that, you would go for like a very basic serotonin boost. And then after that, would you be going to like a psychiatrist? Before that, there's no psychologist, psychiatrist, counseling. And at my school, George Brown, they had like events like mental health friendly events where they would put out like a stall where there would be like a stress toy or like something like that. It would be so nice like to see these such drives happen, because at that point of time, trust me, I needed it so much. My flatmate would, and who was also my college mate, he would get me all of those toys. He would say, go, like, you play with these while you sit at the chair in the class, because I would in between classes get panic attacks. And um I till date don't know what would have triggered them. But now, after listening to your story about silence and isolation, maybe it was that. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was the very first time that I was in a space where I felt isolated. Even though I had a flatmate, I still felt isolated. I felt like I didn't know who I was. Um, I was in a simulation and I was like, like, am I the same person in this simulation or a different person? Can I be a different person? It was a lot of like identity crisis. So yeah, like I still don't understand what it really was. But nonetheless, I'm very, very grateful to that experience, because if I wouldn't have had that experience of living abroad, being in that silence with myself, I wouldn't have truly realized how much was piled up, and how much I was using even spirituality as a bypassing tool. I would use it to bypass my pain, my struggles, or the grief or the anger. Oh my God, the amount of anger I held in my body. I still am working on it while I help other people, because it's not an easy thing to process all of it 2 years ke andar completely, and it happens in layers. It's like an onion.
Yeah.
So yeah, this feels like a therapy session for me. But no, trust me, guys, this is not what therapy sessions are all about. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff.
yeah, there's a lot of other stuff, but it feels like that because I'm expressing myself very, very authentically here. And I think it is about the authenticity that, how where you like sort of like completely, totally drop all your layers and masks and just be very, very vulnerable and honest. That was me back few seconds. So yeah, my question to you, Ria, is that once you got to know that, okay, this is what I'm struggling with, like, were you skeptical of going for therapy, number one? And number two, when you did go for therapy, how did it sort of like change things for you while you were living in abroad? Because I remember when I visited you, I don't know if you were anxious at that point of time or you were taking therapy at that point of time. I think when I came to you. Oh, and by the way, I met Ria. My second year was supposed to be in France. And when I went to France, again, it was like a very isolating experience because I didn't know their language. And I was living in a small village with like maybe not even like, it had only like a few thousand people's population. And it was one house. My Wi-Fi wouldn't work there. And I would go to work like every day, same time, creating the same products. Oh my God, so much to learn, but still, like, to do it on a repeat every day, especially when you're on medication, it was really, really tough. So I actually came back. I decided that it was a 3 months phase, but I decided to come back within 2 months. And then I called Ria. I was like, I'm passing by. Are you there? Are you there? And then she's like, yeah, I am. And then it was so fun. Like, she met me at a bus stop and picked me up, and we went and stayed. And yeah, and we just had like so much fun. And one day, I think 1 or 2 days, I was with you. And then I just went like solo backpacking, whatever. And then I just Lyon, and wow, amazing experience.
Paris also.
and then Paris also. And then I came back home because I was like, you know what? Fuck, I'm on medication.
Yeah.
Travel, I'm gonna miss. And I don't know how my parents allowed me because I mean, I'm so grateful to them that they trusted that, you know, I will be able to take care of myself even though I was on medication and having panic attacks. Some guts they have, okay? Uh, so
No, but
yeah, so
that is a good way to look at life, when you go abroad, to never say no to an experience, because
mm,
that is something that I definitely learned to not deprive yourself. Yeah, not
huh.
deprive yourself of any experience. And as an introvert,
Hmm.
I tend to always hold back and say that, maybe what if? Okay, that was something we acknowledged in my therapy sessions, but what if was a big question mark to everything that happened in my daily life. So, yeah, never say no. Not to all the bad things, of course. You have to have that sort of discernment, but yeah.
Yeah, no.
Uh, but to answer your question, you asked me about,
I asked you about that before going in for therapy. Like,
yeah.
was there any skepticism? And when you did go into therapy, then how did it help your like anxious feelings?
So, when I decided to take therapy, it was out of helplessness. It wasn't because I wanted to take therapy and get better, or it was just that I had looked for answers everywhere. I had spoken to people, tried to let go of what I was feeling, to think that maybe it's just, trying to, I don't have people around here. Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just, I don't know. Like I came up with multiple answers, and none of them really resonated with what I felt. It didn't feel like the solution to my problem. And I was just talking to a friend of mine who was here, and she was just like, why don't you just take therapy and I will give you my therapist number. And at that point, I was just like, I've tried everything and I looked around, gone for walks, spoken to people, tried to have dinners with people, tried to sit with everyone and not say no to experiences. But there was still a problem that I couldn't solve. So I said, okay, and immediately, like I spoke to my friend that day, she gave me a number. And that's another thing, therapy is not cheap when you're abroad. So I had to take therapy online with a person who was sitting in India. And maybe that was not such a bad thing in terms of monetary wise, of course, it was a good thing. But also the fact that, when you're meeting a therapist who is not from your country, I don't know how much they would understand what you're going through. I'm sure they're very empathetic, but to understand your culture and where you come from, you probably have to be from that culture. I don't know if that's a thing or if that's only in my head. But yeah, so I started talking to this lady, and yeah, so that's how it started basically. The day my friend told me, the next day I booked an appointment with her, and then we had an online session. And she was a cognitive behavior therapist. Okay, so what she did was basically teach me how to retrain my brain. And she gave me, like, there were very interesting things that she gave me to think about. One of them was that she asked me multiple questions before she reached this point, of course. And it involved a lot of crying for an hour, and then we got there. But yeah, so she was just like, when you look outside the window and it's raining, and I'm going to give you three statements. You have to tell me the difference between the three statements. Okay. One was, oh, it's raining outside. Okay. Second one was, oh no, it's raining outside. And the third one was, oh wow, it's raining outside. And she was like, tell me what the difference is. And that's how, that's how they train you to understand, first of all, break down your thoughts. And yeah, to understand that, a neutral, positive, and negative state of mind could also be because of your own thoughts. You could look at it as, oh, wow, it's raining. Or you could look at it, I mean, you might even hate rain, but that's not the point. The point is that she trained me to understand when I thought negatively and to note that down. And that's how you reflect on those emotions. So it's a long process. It's not like immediately when I started taking therapy, everything became okay. But she taught me to become my own therapist. And that's what she told me that, I want you to stop taking therapy so that you can become your own therapist. I don't want you to keep coming back. I want you to be able to do this on your own because you don't need to be dependent on me for this. And so every day there was some task that she would give me that would help me reconstruct the way I looked at life. And I apply it till date because I'm just that kind of person who can very easily go down the negative route and just spiral down very easily. So to note down those thoughts and to understand whether it's coming from within or whether it's projected outwards or whether it's projected towards my situation. That is also something that you need to understand to be able to, get to the problem and try and solve it. So it's a long process. It took months to get to where I am, where now I don't need to call her up. Where I've become my own therapist. It's about learning what she teaches you and then applying it throughout your life. So, yeah, it's a slow process. It takes time to get there, but it's a lot of effort, which is why maybe it's harder because you have to go back to acknowledging and thinking of those emotions that you don't want to think of. So yeah, and I managed to do it while I was there. So it's not like it's impossible to do it. Maybe my situation was easier, but yeah, it took me to do all of it by myself. So being alone and lonely abroad is also maybe a good thing if you can get out of it. Yeah. So loneliness is not entirely negative.
Do you think we just went there so that we could experience this and come back and make a change probably here in our country?
Maybe. And that's something that I keep wondering, like why don't we have something like this in school? Why don't we ever learn things like this in school? Why don't we learn how to make boundaries with people, how to tell no? I think that is something that everyone I have met struggles with. Everyone struggles to say no at some point. Or maybe I just come across people like me. But yeah, like it's so basic. It's so basic, but it's not something that you're taught ever. You just reach a point where you have to push yourself to learn it because you're in such a dire situation. So yeah, it's strange that we had to go there to experience something like this.
And I honestly and genuinely feel like that's the entire reason why I started what I did, right? Because I felt like, what was the point of me going abroad and then coming back and having all of this insight about how there are some things that are positive, like say for example me getting a psychiatrist therapist while I was on medication and trigger warning, but in a situation of self-harm. It took me 20 days to get an appointment for a psychologist, which is great when it comes to India because here you can just go and get an appointment like every single day. There are so many of them, right? But another thing was that there's not enough awareness, active drives, campaigns happening in schools. Suicide helpline is not as available. There are so many things that are like pros that are there abroad and so many pros of India. And I was just thinking what a wonderful world it would be if both of them combined could exist in one place. And even so more better for, like, as a country here in India,
Yeah.
for growth and expansion of all those people, because we have a huge population, right? So yeah, I mean, for me, that was my purpose project, sort of a thing that I really wanted to do. But I guess somewhere in the midst, once I came back because of my, again, coming back to another simulation and with the same kind of like automated system that I used to function with over here in this time zone, I again got back into the grind of hotel industry. And then, yeah, it took one person, one idea to probably bring that resonance back that, okay, I want to create change. And I think we can just go on and on when it comes to this conversation of probably well-being and living abroad. But I think my last question to you before we wrap this up would be like, if there's somebody who's living abroad, what would you say to them when it comes to them taking care of themselves, like their well-being, their mental well-being, emotional well-being, physical well-being?
I think mental well-being, I think, is not, I mean, after living through all of that, I would say that, it's not something that you can do completely on your own in your surroundings. So a lot of it you don't have control over, which is that maybe if you do want to find someone to talk to there, you might not be able to. Okay, that's the reality of things. That you might be surrounded by the nicest of people, but you might not find that connection to be able to open up about that. So that does not mean that, you know, you can't have that there is no way out. There is a way out, no matter what, no matter how alone you feel at any point. And this is not only abroad, but in your own country, in your own respective countries, there's always a way. And to not lose the will to find that way is what is very necessary. And therapy might be expensive, but you and I have managed to find some sort of therapy in each other. I'm not saying that it can completely replace it, but a long distance call is not so bad. It did help in some way or the other. It wasn't something that did not help at all, but it's maybe not what you need at that moment. But of course, like, it's not impossible to get through something like that. It's nothing is going to be worth putting an end to things. Everything has to, there is always a solution, is all that I would say. That no matter how hard things can be, there is always a solution. And yeah, just talk to someone. Because if I hadn't called up and spoken to that friend who gave me that therapist number, I wouldn't have a solution. But I would continue to think that there was no solution. But there is some way. There's always a way, is what I would say for your mental well-being. For physical well-being, I don't know. Just, I think when you're out there in a beautiful place, take a walk. I think that's something that I really miss. Just walking without knowing. It's the best kind of exploring you can do. Not have an itinerary, just walk around. I miss doing that here because we don't have footpaths that can enable you to do that. But yeah, it's definitely physically just, I used to walk so much. And in some ways, it made me healthier in terms of my food choices also, because if it's expensive, then you tend to make your own food. You know what you're putting in your own food. So that just automatically happens, I guess. So yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. I think my perspective is slightly different than yours in terms of, there's always a way out and talk to somebody sort of a situation. For for me, I think when I was in Canada, I had our dear friend, our common dear friend who was there with me. She was my saving,
Yeah.
she was my saving grace, dude. And I had one of my college friends is there as well, who really, really supported me at that point of time. I made a new friend who was my like GBC friend who really, really was there for me. So I had people to talk to, but still I reached the extremities of it. So I guess talking helps for sure, but I think sometimes you need home. You need your family. So I would honestly suggest that if you are living abroad and you are somebody who is struggling with your mental health, like it's not a bad idea. Don't ever think that it's a bad idea, no matter how much pressure you have of like money on you. Like, because for me, the reason why I wouldn't come back, even though so many times my friends told me that I should go back, was because of the money situation, because I took a loan, and I didn't want to pressurize my parents in any which ways. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. But yeah, so if you're that someone who is just not coming back home and is suffering out there with your mental health or your physical health or your emotional health, it is difficult, but come back home. It's okay, because
Yeah.
it's absolutely okay. Like, your life is so much more important than anything. And if nobody is telling you that, even if your parents are not understanding in that very moment, my parents did not understand in that moment, but if your parents don't understand in that moment, still, if you're listening to this and you're listening to me, then know that you tell yourself that your life is so much more important than money, in any which ways. All of that will be sorted out. But if you lose yourself, or if your loved ones lose you to any mental health struggles, minor or major, there's no way to come out of that. Because
Yeah.
if you've lost hope, then, I mean, it's difficult to bring it back. So for you to not lose hope, come back to your family, because that's where you began from. That's where you realize that, okay, there's an external team outside of me who's here to support me, even though eventually you become against them, they become against you, you don't like them, la di da di da. Still come back home, because home is home.
Yeah.
Like, maybe for you, your parents are not your parents, or you don't have nice relationships. It's fine. Whatever feels like home to you
Yeah.
in your own country, be it a friend, best friend, an ashram, whatever it may be for you, but come back, because I think that will be very helpful. That's just my perspective. So yeah.
Yeah. I agree. You know, it's not only, and there's also this, you know, when you choose to leave a country and go back, it feels like a missed opportunity, or there could be a part of you that would be like, you know, what if I regret this for the rest of my life? What if I can't come back here anymore? And that's okay. It's okay. Maybe it's not meant for you. Maybe you're not meant to live there and continue living there. You've experienced something, you've learned something, and it's okay to leave with some sort of learning. And it's not, nothing's worth more than your own self at the end of it all. Like
It's
the
not the
loneliness and the silence, you are left with yourself ultimately. So don't let go of yourself. Yeah. Yeah, and I love the idea of like coming back home really solved a lot of problems. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
not end of the world. I told
yeah,
Riya this call that, she'll be using this for her nose and I'll be using it for my eyes. Sounds about right. Doesn't it?
yeah.
So
I think that's a good way to,
yeah,
yeah.
let's wrap it up. Thank you so much, Riya, for being here and talking to me and for making me cry. like you always
I
do.
think, yeah, that's in always. I will cry after we're done with the call.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
being here.
you for calling me. And I want to say that I love what you're doing. And to be brave enough to talk about your emotions on a platform where everyone can see is not easy, but you're doing it because you know that it can help people. And it's great that, I think this was your purpose of coming back home, to make something out of all that you experienced, to be there for someone else, to be someone else's Sarthi. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, stop it, girl. Thank you so much. I think I could have done this only with this girl, okay, this woman. But yeah, bye, guys.
Bye.